Good morning. My name is Bonnie, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the CA Process Automation User Community Webcast. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question-and-answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. I would now like to turn the conference over to Mr. Henry Taylor. Please go ahead, sir.
I just got a message that Henry was accidentally dropped from the call, so I'm going to introduce it. My name is Mary Greening, and I'm the Community Manager for the Process Automation Global User Community. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We have a nice lineup of speakers today. We have Steve Solomon, who is a Senior Principal Product Manager from CA. He'll be introducing the new CA connector for ServiceNow. For CA Process Automation. And we have a longtime support engineer, Scott Owens from CA, and he's going to go over the top 5 message board posts. If you need to ask a question, please use the Q&A panel. If you use chat, it won't make it to the presenters. So use Q&A, and at the end we'll have a poll. Enjoy the webcast. We'll record it and put the recording and the presentations in the webcast archive, which is located in the message board. I'm going to turn the call over now to Steve Solomon.
And Mary, you'll be passing me the ball?
Yep, I just did.
Thank you. So while that's all starting up, I want to say hi to everybody. This is Steve Solomon, and to all my North American colleagues that are suffering through the polar vortex. Let's let you know that Arizona is not accepted from that. It is a balmy, chilly 43 degrees, headed to a seasonally cold 63. So all of us are wearing coats, jackets, and gloves out here in sunny Arizona. As I'm getting past the ball, I'm going to switch over to my presentation. I am a product manager. I'm not part of the PAM team, but I manage a team at CA where we build advanced integrations using PAM. And what we try to do then is, if we're building an integration and it has a lot of cool operators and a lot of PAM value, we put that out as a premium PAM connector. So today, in today's presentation, I'd like to introduce a new premium PAM connector for ServiceNow. As you guys know, CA has 2 service desks. We have Service Desk Manager and we have NIMSOft Service Desk. And we started having a lot of customers come in and ask for automation capabilities for ServiceNow, specifically for our service assurance product lines. And so we said, okay, we'll build it, we'll leverage PAM, and then we'll be able to have that available. So if you have a need to integrate with ServiceNow with PAM, you now have the opportunity to acquire full-baked processes and even some sample workflows. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. The first version of the connector came out in December, and we have another version of it in the works as we've been rolling it out to customer sites. Of course, we get lots of feedback because lots of folks have customized ServiceNow in different ways with either using the standard web services or custom web services or custom endpoints. So we have lots of flexibility for you in today's connector, and if you have any unique requirements, let us know, since it is still being actively developed and we have the next release and possibly the 3rd release so that we can make sure that we can include all of the customer feedback and capabilities. It's not paging down for me, Mary. Are you still with us? There we go. All right, so if you guys don't know what ServiceNow looks like, ServiceNow is just an incident management system, service desk, change management system. It looks like pretty much most of the service desks that are out there. If you're familiar with Service Desk Manager or the others, it's going to be pretty much the same. However, you got to understand it is highly customizable like other service desks, and people can have their own fields. So before you start an integration, one of the things you're going to need to do is you're going to need to reach out to your ServiceNow team and say, okay, what customizations have you done, and how do I work with it? And what you can do is you can actually export a lot of those customizations and you can import them into a demo system. So one of the interesting things that ServiceNow does is they have an open demo environment that is available as a SaaS-based product. So you don't have to go get your own instance or even work with your corporate test instance if you're doing some PAM level of automation. You can use the open demo instance. One of the things that ServiceNow does is they refresh it every night and it goes back to a generic installation. And so it's kind of one of those things, they use it for demos, quick hits. Some of the systems administrators go look up how to do things in that, and then it is wiped out and refreshed every night. So some opportunity there for working with the fields and the integrations. Here we go. So what does the new connector do? Well, it's primarily oriented about creating incidents. And so if you're familiar with Service Desk, you have incidents, and multiple incidents can be related to a single problem. So a problem is, you know, my server went down and it impacted 15 services, and those 15 services would be incidents, and they'd be wrapped up into the problem. We can also support change orders, people. So maybe you need to create new people out in your system. So maybe you have a service request that's doing an HR, and you need to go define those people and give them certain roles. You can do that level of automation now with this connector. You can also do computer systems and generic CIs. CIs are configuration items. If you haven't worked with a CMDB before, a CI is whatever you want to track that is a configuration item. Often we use a description. It's a server. And then I have my Exchange service, which is my email service, and I'll have 3 Exchange servers. Those individual Exchange servers are a CI, but then I might have a service that is defined. And so what we can do is we can manage all of those kind of updates and across, so you can do some configuration management side updates with your PAM connector. So the connector was created for SOI, which was our Service Operations Insight. And so our team went and did the negotiation, got access to ServiceNow, and created it. And as part of that, SOI uses Catalyst. And so this one's going to throw a little interesting twist in. If you've used a connector from my team before, you notice that we do use Catalyst, and so it does require a Catalyst container. We did that because of the way that SOI works and the way that it does its CI synchronizations. And so there is a little bit of additional overhead as we've tried to make this generic for CA products and specific for SOI, and then capable for all of the PAM automation. So, you know, it doesn't add a lot of benefit for the direct PAM users, but you need to be very aware that it is there and it is required and how the process works. So when the operators go out, they actually talk to Catalyst, and then Catalyst passes those on to the SOAP web services for ServiceNow. So just a sideline, you do need, when you get this connector, to make sure that you have a Catalyst 3.2 container available for the solution. One of the great things about the automation is, and one of the reasons I use this nice little elephant is, if you've ever heard the story of blind men and an elephant, as each person touches the elephant, they get a different experience of what an elephant might be. If a blind man never seen an elephant, he touches the trunk, he goes, man, it's like a big snake. Or somebody touches the middle, it's like a big wall. Or the guy that touches the tail, it's like, well, no, it's like a rope. Each of them will have different visibility. Before you do your integration, you want to make sure that you see the elephant, right? You want to understand what you're connecting. So if in this case it would be SOI, in your case it could be something else. It could be SCOM or something like that you're going to build some automation for to create incidents. So you want to understand what your environment is, why you want to create the incidents. You want to understand the ServiceNow environment and what you'll be mapping into and what the customizations are, and you'll need to then understand PAM to go out and build it. So you're going to make sure that you want to have good visibility in what the elephant looks like before you get started. Otherwise, it'll just be a slow incremental process. And if you have questions on how the integration works, I'll be happy to meet with you and talk even with your ServiceNow folks about how the integration works prior to you getting started. So as we go forward, this is the list of operators. So this is what you guys really typically care about. So that we've built a lot of different operators. So we don't use all of these operators in the out-of-the-box SOI or the workflows that we provide, but we went ahead and we said we want to make a very robust premium PAM connector. So we created all of the operators that we thought that folks would need. If you happen to be deploying this and there's an operator that you don't have, and please let me know. I'd be happy to go out and do the research and see if we can add it into the GA version of the connector. But it's quite robust, and so it gives you a lot of capabilities. So PAM is a toolkit. These are your tools, and then you can assemble the workflows as you need for your integrations. So we do have some of the workflows that are out there so that you can start and you say create an incident. You can start our workflows. You can copy our workflows and use them as a base. Think of them as a hello world that you can copy over and say, okay, we've got different processes that are out there in the workflows that are packaged and distributed to you. And so you can say, oh, go ahead and whatever my process is, go ahead and start this workflow and have the process go through. And here's my information I need to pass. Go ahead and go create the alert. So we've done some of the workflows for you in what is in the out-of-the-box solution. And one of the things that we've done is in some of the workflows, you will say customize here. So one of the things that we've run into in PAM is one of the most awesome tools in the world. You can customize anything. On the other side of that is PAM is one of the most hideous tools in the world because you can customize anything, and then when we do an upgrade, how do we do an upgrade? And so you have to be judicious in what you change out of the box. So if you copy our workflows, you can do anything you want to them. If you want to change our workflows and be supported, then what we do say is look for the add custom JavaScript here. And in this case, in this workflow, this is on the pre-processing of the incident. So maybe that in your incident, you need to add some JavaScript to go get some information to determine incident routing. So maybe that you're doing an incident, it needs to go to a network group, maybe it needs to go to a PC service group, or maybe it needs to go off as a service request to some outside team, and whatever the custom queues you want to drop it in. You can add your own custom JavaScript to do your routing, and you can update the variables that are being passed. So maybe there's some customization that you need to do that says it comes in as field ABC, but in ServiceNow, ServiceNow calls it 123. You can do that kind of custom mapping. If you do that in the custom script in the custom box that we have, it helps us with our upgrades, and as we go out, you'll be able to apply new versions of the connector without having to do a lot of rework in the workflows. So remember, if you create your own workflows, upgrades are on you. If you use mine, if you stick to the customization exit points, it'll make your life much easier during upgrade. All right. What we've also done then is, as part of the out-of-the-box solution, there's a polling service. So one of the things we've said is, okay, what happens now if I go create an incident, if somebody works it or they add comments to it? And so there is an out-of-the-box polling service workflow that will kick off to say, okay, for the incidents that I've created, go ahead and go poll them on an interval since the last time that I've looked. And so what it'll say is, okay, I haven't looked in 4 minutes. Go look for the changes for the incidents that I'm interested in the last 4 minutes. So there is some out-of-the-box logic that you can capitalize on if you need a bi-directional. So oftentimes in PAM, we're saying, okay, go create the incident. And rather than have to code it all yourself, there are some workflows that you can start with to say, oh, I need a bi-directional. I need to know when things have changed in ServiceNow. Part of the concept and the theory of the connector is we didn't want you to have to go to the ServiceNow team and say, hey, can you put these changes in? Can you put these changes in to trigger this to happen when this gets updated? So you can do that. You can go to your ServiceNow team and ask them to start a PAM process through some of their custom exits when an event occurs. But if you want to control it all from your own side, you can go check for events and then trigger your PAM processes to kick off. So we wanted to make sure that we put that in for you. In the service operations insight use case, we go out and we create incidents off alerts from systems like a server is down or is performing bad. And then in the case that it is updated, accepted, or worked inside of ServiceNow, we capture that information, we publish it back in SOI. So that that kind of use case is instantiated for you, and you can use it and leverage it for whatever applications you need. Now, PAM dashboard, there are a lot of processes that start, because what happens is when you get an incident, it will start a workflow to create an incident, and then it will do this check and retrieve changes workflow. If you choose to start it, you can see those polling down there. We do recommend that whoever deploys this solution, somebody monitors it, right? So in case something changes on the ServiceNow side or there's some configuration change that happens along the way, you will see them go into the waiting stage if there's conflicts or the failed or aborted. So what we like to see is 100% completed, which we're seeing on this chart. I do mention that as a warning to new users that may not have a lot of PAM experience, that somebody does need to take a look from time to time to make sure that the processes are working correctly. You can configure it to send yourself an email if there's a PAM process or an append or an email. You can do those level of customizations that you would do as normal in your system automation to keep track of things that are running on. If you come out here and everything's in the completed state, you check from time to time, then you have that yin and yang peace of mind, right? You've checked, you've verified, life is good. So there are a lot of different processes that can be started, and if you're doing the automatic retrieve changes and they kick off every 4 minutes, you're going to see a lot of those. So from time to time, you're going to want to make sure that your incidents, your problems, your processes are working correct. There are 2 different releases of ServiceNow that we support. The current one is called Calgary. The previous one is called Berlin. There is a new one that they're working on that they may already have out in limited availability status. We have not started working with the new one yet. So if you are using an instance of ServiceNow that is not Calgary or Berlin, I would appreciate an email to let me know, to give me a heads up. So I know that they're starting to work on releasing their next one that is out, and I believe it's called Dublin. There are some differences in configuration items. So if you write to Berlin because you're using Berlin today, just beware that in the configuration item operators, there are some differences between what Berlin can do and Calgary can do. So just a side note that you'll want to use Calgary if at all possible. Now, ServiceNow is Service Desk in the cloud. So most customers use it as a SaaS product where they log in and ServiceNow manages it, and it's not an on-site premise. There are some large customers that have on-site deployments of ServiceNow. And we've tested with the SaaS in the cloud version. We've talked to ServiceNow, and supposedly there's no difference if you were using an on-site version. So if you do start to deploy this as a premium connector with an on-site version and you run into any issues, I definitely would like to hear back on that. And through your PAM team, and Gordon, and that team, if you have enhancements, suggestions, recommendations, we'll be happy to take those in and take a look at those and see what we can do for future releases. Our connectors, as we distribute and we test them, of course, they run on Windows servers 2003 and 2008. We've started to get some requests to support Windows Server 2012. However, this connector is not yet at that level. So I wanted to put that up there and make sure that everybody was well aware about the operating environments. The connector, I believe, is delivered on a PAM 4.1 base, and I think that mostly we've tested it with 3.1 and some 4.0, but we are also kind of expecting that most customers using this level of premium connector will be on the more current version of PAM. So that's kind of where we are with the version. As a toolkit, it's kind of hard to demo all the things that you could do, but it gives you a very sophisticated level of automation. If you're using PAM today in your server automation and your virtual deployment, it now gives you a lot of capability to go and update ServiceNow. So for example, if you were using the vCloud Premium Connector and you were provisioning servers on the fly, you could actually go out and update your ServiceNow CMDB if that was what your process allowed. Or what you could do is you could create a change ticket as a standard ITIL change in ServiceNow and say, oh, I have a new configuration item I've just provisioned. Go ahead and put it through a standard change ticket through your ServiceNow environment. So you have a lot of different ways to either implement a direct operational CMDB in ServiceNow or an ITIL version CMDB of an authorized view. So, I mean, you have a lot of flexibility in your toolkit to do levels of automation that you would have had to build individually using the web services prior. So, don't forget, my side note, you must have a Catalyst 3.2 container as part of it. So if you go download and you just go and import the XML, which has the operators, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to fail and it's going to say, hey, I can't find the Catalyst 3.2 container. So be sure you do that. You also have to ensure that ServiceNow web services are available and accessible. So there is a standard set of web services that the connector uses out of the box. Oftentimes, some customers in highly restricted environments create their own custom web services as a front end that has additional protection logic and or prevents some information from ServiceNow from going out across the web services. So as you talk to your ServiceNow team about your automation, you're going to want to make sure that you ask, are the standard web services enabled and available? If there are custom endpoint web services, what are they? What are the fields that match with them? That's a much more difficult level of integration. If you can stay with the custom web services, that's what ServiceNow recommends. That's what we recommend. It will make your automation projects that much easier and that much easier to support. Not to mention, you can then test against the demo environment because the demo environment has only the standard web services, none of your custom ones. So if you needed a quick test or a development environment, or if you have 3 projects going at once and your test ServiceNow environments that you're using in-house are busy, you can go out and leverage the demo environment. So just a couple of tips as you go through your automation there. We've started working with some very, very large CA customers on this and deploying this connector, and we're continuing to take the information and the feedback and looking forward to it. So some of the standard workflows that come out of the box. Now remember, we built these as for the SOI use case, and your use case may differ, your mileage may be different, but they're great places to start. So the way we did it, we tried to start putting together generic help desk workflows. And so there are several of those out there that you can leverage, and then there are specific ones for ServiceNow. And so the goal was actually to create as much generic workflows and then only break out the targeted specific information by targeted MDR is what we call them. So if you see that terminology as a management data repository. So we have PAM integrations to Service Desk. We have them for HP Service Manager, BMC Remedy, and now ServiceNow. And the ones that are non-CA Service Desk are, of course, premium connectors. But we tried to standardize some of the help desk logic as much as possible so that as we go through maintenance and upgrades, that it's as common as possible. And then also, just in case you happen to switch from ServiceNow to CA Service Desk, that your automation would be as easy as possible. So if you do end up switching Service Desk in the future, which I know is a difficult undertaking, especially if you have a lot of automation, we're trying to make that simple. So we provide a lot of functionality in the operators, the sample workflows, and the schedules for polling changes. So we think that we have a good foundation that you can use with our CA products and or build in your own product information to do whatever kind of Service Desk integrations that you need. So that's just a high-level integration. If you are looking to purchase the premium connector for ServiceNow, my team would be happy to do a demonstration for you. We're very proud of the work and how it's turned out, and so that you can plan your work accordingly. So as I mentioned, it's a premium connector. It's out there. There's a lot of success with it. And so I've got a couple of questions, but what I wanted to do was in the Q&A section, Bonnie, we can also open the phones if you would like, and I can take some questions, or I'll be responding to Q&A now as it's come in. So I see Craig has posted a question. Is Catalyst a separate chargeable item, or is it a freely available? Catalyst is a central integration technology for CA. It is freely available. There is no charge for the Catalyst container. Craig, how can I obtain a copy of it? So we're working with Gordon and the PAM team to get the connector published out onto the PAM page where you get your other connectors. In the meantime, this is Steve Solomon. It's Steven, S-T-E-V-E-N, .solomon@ca.com. You can send me an email, and we can engage Gordon on how to get you a proof of concept copy or a trial version, and so you can do an evaluation to see if you want to license it. That is the two that are so far. Bonnie, are we there?
As a reminder, to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad.
So Craig, did you have any other questions? Anybody else?
At this time, there are no audio questions.
Okay, so Lisa's asked a question, and I said ServiceNow is Service Desk in the cloud. Yes, it is. So rather than doing an on-site installation, ServiceNow recommends that you purchase seats of a ServiceNow instance, and they manage it. So they install it, they manage the hardware, they manage the backups, and what you do is you can just log into it. And so if you went out and you searched on the ServiceNow demo environment, you could go log into it, into the demo environment yourself now. So they maintain it, but you have the ability to do customizations on administration side. So you would still have a Service Desk support team, but you would just manage the customizations. You wouldn't manage the deployment. And in most cases, you don't necessarily manage the upgrades. They do that for moving from Berlin to Calgary to Dublin.
We do have an audio question from Niranjan Tigala.
Are we off
Hello,
mute?
please. Go ahead.
Are we good?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, in one of the slides where you talked about the integration, I noticed the checkboxes covered incident, problem, and change. What about request?
There is a generic table update, and so what we did is we put in a generic update so you can hit the request table. You can hit any of the standard tables or custom tables that are built through the generic table update request.
Okay, thanks.
And it looks like Miguel has also asked a question on the Q&A about exception processing. You know what I did is I didn't show you the full workflows. I only showed you snippets. So there is exception processing. However, I don't think it's to the level where we send you emails. It's really a back end. There are processes that you can configure to do that, but there is exception processing to report on the issues and the processes. But I didn't go through the full workflows that we provide. right, I think I see another. Anybody else online? I see John about service request or SRs, and I think that's not in the out of the box. If it's something that, by the way, on the SRs, on the generic table, you know, if it's something that you need that's something different and exceptions, let me know, because, you know, once we talk about what the use cases are for those. So there's not out of the box for request and the operators. All right, there was 5 that were online, 1 on the Q&A, and then 1 via voice. Any other questions that we can talk about? All right, as I mentioned, my team is a team, and I think it's kind of interesting for your user group as we are building solutions using PAM for internally and making those capabilities available to the PAM community. So my solutions integration team is out there to help you guys if you're using some of the premium connectors that we have produced, like the vCloud connector and for the Amazon integration. So if there's something that you guys need, don't hesitate to reach out to your PAM leadership team or your user community leadership. Hendry and I got to get together at one of the CA Worlds, and so we'll be happy to do what we can to support you. So any other questions online or via the queue? So Lisa asked questions if you customize the PAM workflow. So if you customize the out-of-the-box workflow, when we issue a new release of the connector and you install the new versions of the workflow, it could overwrite yours. And so that's what I was talking about customizing it. And so what you'll want to do is before you do an upgrade of the connector, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of your customizations in a place that won't be replaced or overridden or that you can reapply. That's why we generally recommend that you copy our workflows and that you alter your own workflows. And that way when you get a new version of the connector, you can do your workflow and you can do a comparison with your customized workflow and see if there's changes that you need to make or there are enhancements that you need to adopt into your workflows. All right, I think that's the questions that I had so far. You guys are always welcome to send me an email or send something to Gordon. Gordon and I work very closely together, and we'll do what we can to support you. So I think that's the end of my section. So I believe that Scott is up next. So Scott, I will pass you the ball, and then we can talk about your area. Are you ready, Scott?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So I'm passing the ball now. Thank you, guys.
All right. Steve, is the presentation showing up?
It is. Top 5 process automation support article.
Okay.
There you go.
Again, thank you so much, Steve. My name is Scott Owens. I've been with CA for 14 years in the support organization. I've been part of Level 1 for PAM support since its inception. As Steve said, PAM is a great toolkit and very powerful. Looking at the attendees list, I've worked with probably over 90% of you. I recognize some names, and some of the things I'm going to be going over in this presentation, I know I've had cases that we've resolved some of these cases with. I'm going to be going over. Now, this is the top 5 process automation support articles and tech tips. The first one is the installing process automation 4.x or 4.0. This technical document, with the 4.x release, we now require XA transactions being turned on. This document is a complete walkthrough of any of the 4.x versions, 4.0, 4.1, or 4.2. They're all very similar. This goes over creating the database permissions, configuring EEM properly for an internal store or an external store, and installing PAM with all your, so you can use PAM properly. That's probably one of the most common issues in support is I have PAM, I want to get installed, can you help me do it? Yes, certainly. In this document, we'll be happy to help you with it. Second one is how to configure the Java memory heap that PAM uses. PAM by default uses 128 megs and 1 gig for the initial and maximum memory heap. That's by default. This technical document goes over how to change that, and it's simply editing the c20svcw.conf file that you'll see in this directory. Now, if you're using a 32-bit JDK, the maximum is 1536. If you're using a 64-bit JDK, which I know most of you are, and you can confirm this by, on your server, going to the command line and typing Java space -version. With the 64-bit, you can increase that much more depending on your system, whatever is available physically on your system or allocated to your VM. With modifying the init in maximum memory, you should keep the init and maximum memory the same as to not stress the I/O on the server. So, for example, the init could be set to 1536, and the max could be set to 1536. Once that's done, you would simply save the file, the c20svcw.conf file, and then restart your server. You can also configure this in the PAM user interface, which if you do it that way, you would not need to restart your server. The third one is logging into ITPAM as an LDAP user through EEM. By default, PAM's going to install with using an EEM internal store. When you install PAM, as probably all of you know, it's going to create the ITPAM admin and ITPAM user for the 3 versions, and then the PAM admin or for the 4 versions. And it's going to make them permissions, give them permissions to the proper application groups in EEM. This technical document, once you've installed PAM, most clients want to connect into their Active Directory to use their LDAP users. This document goes over how to do that. Within EEM, you'll see from the screenshot here, under the configuration, actually I believe this is an EEM 8.4 screenshot, but in EEM 12, it's the same as far as the configuration is concerned. You switch it from an internal store to reference an external store, and then you would plug in your EEM information. And what you can't see in that screenshot, if you scroll down a little bit more, you hit OK, and it does the bind to your Active Directory successfully. And then if you go back to Manage Identities, you will see all of your LDAP users. Now that technical document walks completely through it. And once you see your LDAP users in the Manage Identities tab, you can then give whatever users who need access to PAM the permissions to access PAM. With 4.1, the PAM admin, PAM designers, PAM production users, to give them access and different permissions in PAM. The fourth one is many of you are using either Service Desk, Service Catalog, ServiceNow, a lot of different solutions with PAM. Some of you are just standalone PAM users. But this one is specific to Service Desk between PAM and Service Desk. How can I launch a PAM process using a Service Desk macro? Or I'm sorry, how to use a Service Desk macro to launch an ITPAM process. This technical document goes over modifying Service Desk, creating the event macro in Service Desk, see your start request form, and goes over all the configurations within Service Desk. And so when you close a change, when you modify the status of a change order, the PAM process will start. The fifth is how to translate your LDAP URL to an ITPAM into your ITPAM LDAP operator properties. So this is not to be confused with EEM. This is in regard to the LDAP operators within PAM. This technical document, I provided a URL, so I apologize I didn't provide the whole TEC number. That's TEC 576440. So in the back of that URL, just add TEC to the front of that. In this technical document, you can use what you have in your whatever your LDAP browser or whatever your LDAP admin will give you, or you can look at your EEM if you're connecting to an external directory, and you can plug in your CN and your OU, your base DN into the LDAP login properties. I have a screenshot here. This is just the retrieve LDAP users operator, but there's a delete LDAP users, there's an add LDAP users, but this is how to configure the LDAP login properties. You'll see that, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to switch screens like that on you. You'll see in the LDAP user, that is your CN, whatever your X500 notation is. So we've seen gotchas in support where people are plugging in the entire this CNOU, everything in the base DN. You put whatever's after the CN, you put that in the LDAP users for like the user ID, and at the bottom you'll see the user prefix, which is CN, and then everything after goes in the base DN using your regular notation there. And those are the top 5 technical tips that we've seen on the community and within level 1. Thank you much. Melanie or Steve, do you want to pass over to Melanie?
Hi, everyone. I will be putting up the poll. If you could just take a minute to answer it before you sign off, that would be great.
And Scott, I think you need to pass the ball to Melanie.
I got
Sure.
it. Is it showing up?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, and thank you everyone so much for joining.
Thank you, Melanie. And just for Henry, for the people who are on the call, don't forget, this is your group. Depending on what you want to see, don't forget to send Henry or Scott Owens some of the suggestions for the PAM user community. I know that my team is a big active user of PAM. We consume it just like you guys do and have people coding different workflows. So if there's something you want to see or see from our group, I'd be happy to do that presentation. So what you guys need, just it's your group. Any questions you have, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much, and you guys all have a great start to 2014. Cheers. Bye.